Everybody, thank you for joining us today. The ACA Small Business Bootcamp and Resource Collective, this July 2nd, Thursday. I'm Robert Theobald, the Small Business Ombudsman and Vice President of Small Business Services at the Arizona Commerce Authority. I want to start by thanking everyone for joining and thanking our community partners. These are just a summary of all our community partners that are helping with the bootcamp and allowing us to provide the content and the service to all small businesses out there. So the Small Business Bootcamp and Resource Collective is designed to help prepare small businesses return stronger from the COVID crisis. It's a statewide initiative supported by our community partners, and it's a daily bootcamp that we are running through July. We started in May and it's running through July, and we're also including a resource collective as part of it with resources from many of our community partners. So the bootcamp can be found on our website. Many of you went on there to register for this event. The webinars are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. every day, except for tomorrow. Tomorrow is the observed holiday for the 4th of July for Independence Day, so we will not be having a session tomorrow. But also the previous sessions that we've run are found on that same website by week, and you can go back and review any of those sessions and pull the content from those. Also, our community partners are sharing resources, guides, etc. To help small businesses, and we have those on our Resource Collective page. And you can see in this little sample, for example, there's Local First, and they've got a local learning lab and their guide for reopening restaurants. And we have many other resources from our community partners on there. So next week's topics, today we've got a great session from Lisa Novack and the IRS. But next week we've got Paycheck Protection Program. It's now closed with the next steps on Monday. And then Tuesday we have how to successfully sell during COVID-19. Wednesday is manufacturing resources for Arizona companies. Thursday's re-energizing your business growth model, and Friday is planning for business disruption. We got some great sessions planned, and we're looking forward to those. So just some updates on PPP. As we mentioned, the program has ended. However, the Senate has passed a bill to extend it, and the House has also passed a bill to extend it. And so they're working together to finalize the terms and get something to the president to continue the PPP program for anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, and potentially tweak some of the rules so it can continue to benefit companies throughout the country with the funds that are remaining. There's about 130 billion to 140 billion remaining in that program, and they're trying to identify where to utilize it at best. If you're looking for forgiveness, we do have the link here for the forgiveness application and information. The forgiveness will go through your lender, not through the SBA, but through the lender with whom you borrowed the money. But the application on there is a great resource to look at as you prepare to apply for forgiveness. And again, on Monday, we will have a session talking about forgiveness. So just some of the small business programs that are available to you from the ACA is our Small Business Services, where it can help you navigate through some of the SBA programs. Work with the SBDC, which are the Small Business Development Centers. They have a great program in Arizona and have access and offices in all 15 counties. Our workforce program can help work with you as you're hiring on new employees and with some training programs and some funding for those. And then our Arizona MEP is a Manufacturing Extension Partnership, and they are a great resource for any of the manufacturers out there as you're looking to navigate COVID or as you continue to grow in the future. Just a quick reminder for the state's COVID-19 page with Arizona Together. Loads of information on this site. If you have any questions, you can usually find a resource there or a link to the agency or program that you're looking for. This is a quick show of the different guides that are available on our Resource Collective, and the other resources to help your businesses work through the COVID crisis and return stronger. There's guides for reopening your restaurant, retail, construction, salons, barbershops, etc. So it's many great resources. So you can also stay informed on other programs and for your small business or for your large business, if you're a large business owner, on the Easy Commerce COVID-19 page under Arizona Business Resources. It's another great tool that you can access. So today's speaker is Lisa Novack. She's a senior stakeholder liaison with the IRS. She's a great partner, a community partner of ours, and helps us lead a community group for the agencies that we work closely together. We're excited to have her on this session to talk with us about some of the programs that from the CARES Act that are helping them with the taxes with COVID. And so we're looking forward to a presentation. And so Lisa, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Robert. So let me see if I can start my video here just to say hi to everyone while I get the presentation loaded. And let's see.
So while Lisa's getting all that, I forgot to mention, you're going to have questions. We anticipate questions in this session. So please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen for those questions. And at the end of our session, we should have a few minutes to go through some of those questions.
Okay, thanks a lot, Robert. So as Robert said, my name is Lisa Novack. I'm with Internal Revenue Service Communication Liaison and Outreach program. We actually do outreach to make sure that everybody knows what their tax responsibilities are. So we work with tax practitioners, we work with industry partners, and so we're reaching out to really make sure that people know about some of these tax benefits as part of the CARES Act right now. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the economic impact payments, which I'm sure everybody is familiar with. And then there's also 3 new credits for employers as part of this COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm going to cover all that material for you this morning. So I'm going to go ahead and shut my camera off right now, maybe. Let's see, there we go. And we'll talk a little bit about the CARES Act that was signed into law on March 27th of 2020. So, this was all part of the COVID-19 tax relief, and they created these economic impact payments. Some people have been referring to them as stimulus payments. Now, most people have already received their payments. So if you were eligible, hopefully you've already received your payment as well. I think I heard yesterday that through yesterday we had issued about $274 million in payments already. So it's kept us pretty busy. But basically what the CARES Act did was they provided some pretty significant financial relief in the form of tax credits for individuals and for families so that they could take advantage of using that money during this period of time. But, normally when you have a tax credit, you have to wait until you file your return. So you would have to wait until 2021 when you filed your 2020 return to get the credit. But Congress had authorized the IRS to make advanced refunds of these payments. So that's why everybody was able to get them so soon. I'm sure everybody knows what these amounts are. The slide shows you the maximum amounts of the stimulus payments that people could receive. So it's $2,400 for folks who filed jointly, $1,200 for those who, for instance, filed single or head of household, and then you were eligible for $500 for each qualifying child. And there's a distinction there. It's not just the dependent, it would have to be a qualifying child. Now, you notice that I said those are the maximum amounts because there is an upper income limit to qualify for those stimulus checks. So if you reached a certain amount of a threshold of your income, your check might have decreased a bit. And then there's also an upper threshold where you no longer qualified to get a payment. Now, there is a popular misconception out there that people who don't work or who don't have any other sources of income are ineligible, but that's simply not the case. So we continue to issue these payments throughout the end of the year. And then one of the questions that we get a lot is whether these payments are taxable, and they will not be taxable. But I do need to let you know that you should have received a letter within about 2 weeks of receiving the payment to let you know how the payment was made and how much it was. And I want to advise you to make sure that you keep that letter with your tax stuff for when you file your return next year. Okay, so, there are some groups of Americans who may not receive a stimulus check unless they take a specific action. We were issuing these payments based on folks who filed a 2018 or a 2019 return, or those folks who got government benefits issued during those years. But there might be people who maybe haven't worked for a long time, and then don't receive any kind of government benefits like SSI or Social Security. So we won't know that you're out there. You won't be in Treasury's system. So we need a way to identify these folks. This could also apply maybe for somebody who was a college student and maybe isn't working or has never worked before. Nobody else can claim them as a dependent. They might be eligible for a stimulus payment as well. There might also be people who aren't required to file a tax return because of their income level. So if they're single and make under $12,200, or if they're joint making under $24,400, they're not required to file a return. So we might not have record of them. So this is kind of where you guys can come in. You can help, if you've got family or friends or somebody that you're aware of that is in those types of situations where they might not work and we might not have record of them, you can let them know that they should take the extra steps to apply for a payment. Now, how did they do that? Well, so I want to talk to you about these two specific tools that we have on irs.gov. These are specifically related to the economic impact payments. You can access them directly from our webpage on irs.gov. The first tool that I want to talk about is on the right. It says non-filers, enter your payment info here. And this is for those folks who aren't required to file federal income tax returns for 2018 and 2019, for the reasons that we've already talked about. So they can go in here and input their information. It's just some very basic information about, filing status and dependents and address and bank account number if they wanted to get direct deposit and that kind of thing. However, if somebody is required to file returns for those years, this is not the place where they should input their information. They should go ahead and file their returns as normal. The second tool over on the left there is the Get Your Payment tool, or Get My Payment tool. It says both on there. So this actually allows you to check the status of your payment and also to update your bank information if we don't already have an account that's related to direct deposit on file for you. So for instance, when you filed in the past, you might have had to pay, so we won't have direct deposit information for you. So that's where you would enter it. If you haven't already received your payment, it doesn't show that payment scheduled, you can update your bank account information there. So what does all this mean? Well, if you know somebody who is eligible for a payment but doesn't file a return, you can let them know that they can go online and use this non-filers tool and input their information, and then give it a couple weeks to update, but then they can go to the Get My Payment application and look to see if their payment is scheduled or to see what's going on with it. So this just shows you the page where you would go to use the Get My Payment application. So you can check your payment status, your payment type, and it'll tell you whether we need more information from you, or that you can include your banking information. This is the non-filers tool right here. Again, this is where those folks could go in and identify themselves so that they could get the payment. Now, we've, in the last few months during all this time, there's been a ton of questions about these payments. And so we've been very actively collecting these payments. We've been elevating them to get answers to the questions. And then we've been posting them to our webpage on irs.gov. And so we have a lot of frequently asked questions. This slide shows you some of the topics of the frequently asked questions. So if you have a question about these, I will guarantee, well, I almost guarantee you that your answer will be there because somebody has probably already raised that question before. Now, one other thing I wanted to share with you about these payments is something you might not already know, but in some cases, they're issuing the payment on a debit card rather than a check. So, some folks might not have been expecting this and thought it was either some advertisement or a scam or something, and they might have destroyed those cards. So there is a way to get that replaced. There is a website, eipcard.com, that they can go to. There's lots of frequently asked questions on there. Plus, there's some information on irs.gov/EIP. So if people need more information, I encourage you to go to those websites. Just wanted to show you a picture of the irs.gov homepage. You can see this is the top of the page, and you can see where you can go directly to the non-filers tool, the Get My Payment tool, and then there's a link to Get Coronavirus Tax Relief, and that's going to bring you to every little bit of information about these topics that I'm going to be talking to you about today. And there's loads of information, there's loads of frequently asked questions, so I really encourage you to take a look at that and check it out. Before I move off of this topic, I do just want to warn everybody about the scams that are going on. There's a lot of them around the economic impact payments right now, so we want to make sure that people are on the lookout for anybody impersonating IRS by phone call or by text or by email. There's a lot of that going around right now, so be on the lookout for that. Just wanted to let you know that IRS is not going to call, email, or text you to get any of your personal information like banking or financial information or a credit card. One thing to be aware of is, first of all, we do not do business by email or text. So you can automatically know that if you get an email or a text that says it's from the IRS, it's not. As far as phone calls, we're not going to call you out of the blue. You're going to get a letter before we contact you about anything. So keep that in mind. We're also not going to call and threaten you with going to jail if you don't pay us right away. So keep that in mind as well. Just like any other type of scam, you want to watch out for any of the websites or social media attempts that are requesting money or personal information. Those emails maybe that you don't recognize, or it might even be spoofing somebody that you do recognize. So always be cautious about clicking on links or clicking on attachments and things like that. And never provide your personal or financial information online or over the phone. If you do get a suspicious email, we do ask you to forward it to phishing@irs.gov. We do kind of try to track these things to see what's out there, and occasionally we can track down the people that are doing it. So of course you can always go to irs.gov to check on some additional information. Now, just to give you a couple of ideas about some of the scams that are going on out there right now. Sometimes somebody might call you and say, we're with the IRS, we issued you that payment by accident, it wasn't correct, it was an error, we need you to send it back to us. So they might ask you to sign that check and send it to them, or they might say, oh, you've already cashed it, okay, we'll wait while you go to the store and get some gift cards. Believe it or not, people do fall for that, but that's not true. We're never going to ask for payment from an iTunes gift card or something along those lines. Sometimes they'll call and suggest that if you pay them X amount of dollars, they can get your economic impact payment quicker or your refund quicker or something like that. And that's not true either. So just be on the lookout for that. And, all of this information that I've shared with you so far, please, make sure that you have a discussion with family and friends, not only just about the scams, which is very important to warn people about, but also, if you do know somebody that might be eligible for a payment, please share this information with them, because we're trying to identify these folks to get them the money that they deserve. And then finally, just kind of a little kicker for our social media. If you'd like to receive some more information on things that are going on with some of these tax benefits, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. So that's just my social media commercial there for you. Okay, so this is where I'm going to begin talking about the employer credits. Now, just kind of an aside, I'm not going to get into the weeds with the technical aspects of this. First of all, we don't have a whole lot of time. I'd need much longer, but this is especially like on the reporting stuff, because you all probably have a tax preparer or an accountant or someone who can advise you. So this is simply just to let you know of the existence of these credits, because I think a lot of people have been pretty focused on the PPP program, and we haven't been promoting the employer credits as much as the PPP program. So just so that you know about some of the basics on these programs. So we're going to start talking about the employer or the employee retention credit. This was actually designed to encourage and to help businesses keep their employees on their payroll during this pandemic. So what is the credit? Well, it's actually a fully refundable tax credit for employers that's equal to 50% of qualified wages that they pay their employees. So the credit applies to qualified wages that are paid after March 12th of 2020 and before January 1st of 2021. So it goes through the end of the year. The maximum amount of the qualified wages that are taken into account with respect to each employee for all quarters is $10,000. So that means the maximum credit for an employer for qualified wages paid to an employee is $5,000. So that makes sense. If the maximum amount of wages you can take into account is $10,000, the most amount of the credit is $5,000 because it's 50%. All right, so who would be considered an eligible employer? So this credit is actually available to all employers, regardless of their size. It also includes tax-exempt organizations. Now, there are two exceptions, governmental employers and self-employed folks for their own services and earnings. Now, to be eligible, they have to fall into one of two categories. The employer's business is fully or partially suspended by government order due to COVID-19 during that calendar quarter, or they have to experience a significant decline in gross receipts during the calendar quarter. Now, what would be a significant decline? This would be, if you look back to the comparable quarter in 2019, that your gross receipts would be below 50% of that comparable quarter. Now, once the employer's gross receipts goes above 80% of a comparable quarter in 2019, then they would no longer qualify after the end of that quarter. Okay, so the qualified wages are wages and compensation that's paid to or paid by an eligible employer to employees after March 12th and before January 1st of 2021, as we've already said. And the amount that's included in the qualified wages does include the qualified health plan costs that are allocable to those wages. Now, one other thing that it depends on is the average number of a business's full-time employees. Again, you're looking back to 2019. How many employees did you have employed full-time in 2019? So employers with 100 or fewer employees, the credit is based on wages paid to all employees, regardless of whether they provided services or not. So for instance, if the employees worked full-time and they were paid for full-time work, the employer will still receive that credit. If you have more than 100 full-time employees, that credit is only allowed only for the wages paid to employees for the time that they're not providing services. So that's the difference based on the number of employees. All right, so how do you claim the credit? Well, so you would report the total qualified wages and the related credits for each calendar quarter on the federal employment tax returns. And so that's usually the Form 941, which is the employer's federal or quarterly federal tax return. Now, in anticipation of receiving those credits, the employer can fund qualified wages by accessing those federal employment taxes. So that would include withheld taxes that are required to be deposited with the IRS. If you don't have enough of those credits that need to be deposited, or I'm sorry, those taxes that need to be deposited, you can request an advance of the credit from the IRS by filing a Form 7200, which is the advanced payment of employer credits due to COVID-19. So this should help fund paying those wages if you can hang on to those deposits and not have to pay those over. So we do have lots of resources on irs.gov about this. Again, we have an entire section devoted to frequently asked questions on the topic. We did put out a news release on March 31st that has some more information about it. And you can always refer to the Form 7200. I think the 941 is out as well, so that you can take a look at that and see how that works. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about is the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. This was signed into law on March 18th of 2020. It provides small and mid-sized mid-sized employers some refundable tax credits that reimburse them dollar for dollar for the cost of providing paid sick and paid family leave wages to their employees for leave that's related to COVID-19. So what it does is it gives businesses with fewer than 500 employees the funds to provide employees with that paid sick and family leave. So it's going to be, you're going to differentiate between the employee's own health needs or the leave that they need to care for family members. So there's actually 3 different parts to this bill. So workers can receive up to 80 hours of paid sick leave for their own health needs or to care for others. And then they could also receive up to an additional 10 weeks of paid family leave to care for a child whose school or place of care is closed due to COVID-19. So the FFCRA actually covers the cost of providing this paid leave by providing the small businesses with refundable tax credits. So again, the same thing we kind of talked about with the employee retention credit. The credits are going to be claimed in the same way as those were. Now, the Act provides that employees of eligible employers who are unable to work can receive up to 2 weeks or 80 hours total of paid sick leave. So the rate of the paid sick leave is at 100% of that employee's pay if they're unable to work. And that would be, for instance, they might be subject to a federal or state quarantine, or maybe they've been advised by a healthcare provider that they need to self-quarantine, or they might even just be experiencing some symptoms and be seeking a medical diagnosis. So they would qualify to be paid 100% of their pay under the sick leave. Their total pay would be capped at $511 per day, or $5,110 in total for that 2-week period of time. Now, on the flip side of that, the rate of pay for paid sick leave is at 2/3 of the employee's pay if they're unable to work due to caring for someone else. So if they're caring for an individual who's subject to a quarantine order, or maybe the child whose school or place of care is closed, on this one, the total pay is capped at $200 per day, or $2,000 in total. Now, the third part of this is the paid family leave credit. So an employee can use paid family leave to care for his or her son or daughter whose school or place of care is closed. So they can get up to 10 weeks of paid leave. The hours of leave here are again paid at 2/3 of their regular rate of pay, but they can receive up to $200 a day, or $10,000 in total for this family leave credit. Again, to claim the credit, the employment taxes that are available for retention would include the withheld federal income taxes, the employee's share of the Social Security and Medicare taxes, and the employer share of the Social Security and Medicare taxes with respect to all employees. So once again, we have lots of resources. Now, this program is overseen by the Department of Labor, so their website does have some questions and answers that might clarify some things for you. We also, again, have the FAQs related to these tax credits on irs.gov. There is also a Treasury announcement there, and then the Form 7200 and the Form 941 will also be good resources for you to take a look at. All right, so today we are looking at the deadline of July 15th for filing and paying your federal taxes. So this is just kind of a friendly reminder for you. If you haven't already filed, it's just about 2 weeks away now. So one of the things I wanted to kind of reinforce with folks is we do really encourage everyone to file electronically, and also, if you owe, to pay using one of the various electronic options that we have available. You know, these are definitely very unprecedented times. A lot of our campuses have been closed. There have been no employees there, so nobody has been processing paper tax returns, correspondence, things like that. So we're slowly reopening. You know, many of our buildings and campuses are going back to work, and they're really trying to address the multitude of the correspondence and paper returns that have been building up and awaiting attention. So really your best bet is to use the electronic option if at all possible. Now, just a reminder, if you do need more time to file, you can file an extension until October 15th. You just want to be sure to submit the extension by July 15th. And remember, this isn't an extension of time to pay if you're going to owe. There really is no such thing as an extension of time to pay, since the system is a pay-as-you-go system and you really should be paying throughout the year. So to request an extension, you will file a Form 4868. You could do that through your tax professional. You could do it on your own using tax software, or even our free file program that's available on irs.gov. Or you can choose to, if you owe, you can choose to submit an electronic payment with, for instance, our direct pay program that I'm going to talk to you about in a minute. And if you are going to use that method, you can just select the Form 4868 or extension as the payment type, and you won't even have to really fill out the form. By making that payment under the extension, you're electing the extension automatically. So just keep those options in mind as well. So if you're an individual, you would file the Form 4868. If you have a business return, like a partnership, an S Corp, you would file the Form 7004 for an extension. Again, July 15th. I can't stress that date enough. All right, so say you are in a situation where you have to pay, and what might have created that situation for you? Well, you might not have made your estimated tax payments, which is recommended, especially for small business owners, especially if you don't have any other withholding. Another thing is maybe you're married and your spouse is an employee and you have the business. If your spouse doesn't have enough withholding withheld from their paycheck, that could put you into a situation where you might owe as well. So I just wanted to share with you a variety of the different payment options that we do have available beyond just writing that check to the IRS and mailing it off. So if you're not already familiar with some of these options, hopefully it'll make you want to use some of these. So this is our payment options page that lists for you basically most of the options that we have available. So we have options for initiating payments online, by phone, or even from a mobile device, because we do have a mobile app called IRS To Go, which with the number 2. And some of your payments can be initiated just by using that app as well. So, you know, if you think about it, if you use any of these electronic payment options, it really puts you in control of paying your tax bill. Because you get a confirmation, it'll also give you some kind of a peace of mind to know that that payment was received and processed. You're not waiting on that check to clear. You're not waiting to see if they did receive it or if it's going to be applied correctly. So with these programs, you can schedule your payments in advance. You'll receive that confirmation. It's quick, it's easy, it's secure, and it's much faster than mailing a check or money order. Sometimes doing these payments, it's probably even quicker than writing the actual check and putting it in an envelope and stamping it. So again, go to our payment options page to see what's available for you. So I want to go over some of these options with you just to let you know what's out there. So we've got the electronic funds withdrawal, and this is where it's part of an integrated e-file, e-pay option. And this is offered only when you're filing your taxes using a tax preparation software. So your tax professional could, you know, when they do your return, they can say, do you want to, you know, make the payment now? And you could do that when you're submitting your return. Using this option, you can actually submit one or more payment requests, and it's a direct debit from a designated bank account. So you can use the electronic funds withdrawal to pay a balance due on most business and personal tax returns when you file them electronically. But when you're filing the current year 1040, you can also schedule your electronic funds withdrawal for any of your estimated payments coming up. So that's a nice little benefit of using this system. The other thing I like to tell people is, you know, if you want to file your return early, like say you want to file it in February and March just to get it off your plate, but you're going to owe, you can file in February or March. You can schedule that payment to come out April 15th if you don't want to pay a day sooner than you really have to. So there are some benefits to using these systems. Okay, the next system is the direct pay. And this is an option that you could use anytime. So if you're an individual, this isn't for business taxes, it's for individual taxpayers. It's going to offer you this, it's free, where you can go online, you can easily schedule your payment, and it's going to come directly from your checking or savings account. Now, as I mentioned, it's a free program. It's available to individual taxpayers. It's on irs.gov. You have to have a valid Social Security number or an ITIN number to use direct pay. It doesn't accommodate for employer ID numbers. You'll receive immediate confirmation after you submit your payment. And so that just kind of gives you a little bit more of a sense of security with it. And the good thing is there is no pre-registration that's required for direct pay. And your payments, you know, there's just like 5 easy steps that can be used in a single session just to set up your payment. So it takes no time at all. All right, so maybe you prefer to pay by credit or debit card. So back to that payments options page, you can click on pay by card and it'll take you to these options. So again, you can pay by internet, by phone, or by mobile device using that IRS To Go app. Now this option is available whether you e-file, whether you paper file, or even responding to a bill or notice. And that's the same thing with the direct pay system too. If you have some type of a notice that you have to pay additional taxes, you can use the direct pay system as well. We do use standard service providers and business and commercial card networks. And their information that they collect is used solely to process your payment. So this is, you can get to this page by going to the pay by card link. This shows you the 3 payment processors that we have to choose from. Now, the service provider does charge a fee, and the fees will vary depending on the provider you select. So this is the fees charged by these providers. It is not a fee charged by IRS. And then one other thing is if you choose to pay by card when you're e-filing with the electronic funds withdrawal, the fees are going to differ from those in this table that's shown. So there is a link, another link that'll take you to the specific fees for the integrated e-file fees. Now, a couple things to know about when you use a card. When you get the statement, it's going to list the payment as United States Treasury tax payment. And then there is also going to be a separate charge, and it'll be listed as something like tax payment convenience fee or something similar to that. Using this method, you usually can't cancel your payment. And then just be aware that not all tax forms are eligible to be paid by credit cards, so just be aware of that. And you also can't make federal tax deposits using this method. Okay, the next option is the Electronic Federal Tax Payment System, otherwise known as EFTPS. And again, this is a free service. It is for paying federal taxes for both individuals and businesses. And this is the only way you can make federal tax deposits. So with this system, you can pay just about any federal tax. Now again, you know, the same benefits. It's quick, secure, accurate. It's available both by phone and online 24/7. So if your internet goes down when you're trying to make a payment at the last minute, you can actually do it by phone. In the system, you can schedule business and individual payments up to 365 days in advance. And you can also authorize like maybe a tax preparer or someone else to make payments, to enroll and make payments on your behalf. So it's really easy to go in here and set these payments up. For individual taxpayers, payment instructions can be submitted on the same day up to 11:45 p.m. Eastern time, and you can actually receive your credit for the same day payment if you made it before that time. You can schedule your payments up to 365 days in advance, and the funds will not move until that date that you indicate. Businesses and individuals will receive an immediate acknowledgement of the payment instructions, and your bank statement will give you the confirmation that the payment was made. It also gives you the option to check up to 16 months of your payment history that you used EFTPS. So it's a nice kind of record keeping system that's available for you. So this shows you the EFTPS page, a couple of the resources over on the left. There's some frequently asked questions. You can see the section that's circled on the slide is the help and information section. There are some downloadable materials. There's also a payment instruction booklet here. So if you're interested in using this option, you do have to register for it, and so it'll take you several days. So don't wait till the last minute, because you will have to get some account information sent to you. Okay, let's talk about cash payments. There is an option to pay by cash. We do encourage using online, but if you really insist or prefer to pay in cash, you can go to a participating retail store. It's our 7-Eleven locations. We have them in 34 states that accept the cash payments. It generally takes 5 to 7 days to process a payment using this method. So you want to be sure to plan ahead of any due date to ensure that payment is posted timely. So you would just go to irs.gov/paywithcash, and you can follow the instructions. You're going to receive an email confirming the information when you register to do this. The IRS is going to verify the information. So this first step is probably going to take you 2 to 3 days. And then you'll get the barcode. You can bring it into the store and scan it and receive the receipt once you pay the cash. And of course, there is still always that option to send a check or money order. Just a couple of points to remember. You want to make sure you make the check out to U.S. Department of Treasury. You want to spell that out in that way so that it can't be manipulated in any way. Make sure you enter the amount using all numbers. You want to send the payment with a voucher or a return or a notice, but please don't use staples or paper clips. Make sure your information includes everything listed on the slide so that they know how to apply the money that's going by check. Remember, don't send cash in the mail. If you need to pay by cash, you can use that system. You can also go to one of our taxpayer assistance centers, but remember, those are all by appointment only now, and so sometimes it could take a little bit of time to get an appointment there as well. And currently, they're not open, at least here in Arizona. We are slowly opening some of our taxpayer assistance centers. And then finally, if you can't pay now, you can apply for a payment plan online or pay off your balance over time. So your specific situation is going to determine which payment options are available for you, but you can see on this payment options page in the lower right-hand corner are the options for can't pay now. So you can request a short-term payment plan if you could pay it in 120 days or less, or individuals and businesses can request a long-term payment plan or an installment agreement. And this would be if you're paying in more than 120 days. So you can click on any of those links to find out more information about those programs. So hopefully everybody's got their returns filed. Nobody owes any additional tax, and you won't need this information. But with that, does anybody have any questions for me?
So Lisa, thank you. That was a great presentation. And we do have a few questions. The first one was from Stacy. She's asking about the employee retention credit. Is it only available if you didn't get a PPP loan?
That is correct. If you have a PPP, you do not qualify for the employee retention credit.
For any of it, or just the PPP covered portion?
I believe it's any of it.
Okay. And then it says for the FFCRA, do employees waiting for a COVID test result qualify for this paid sick leave credit?
Yes, they would, because that is one of the conditions if they're getting tested and if they're being treated by a doctor.
Okay. And then we have one more question in here. Folks, if you have any other questions, please put them in the Q&A box. We have a couple more minutes. It says, with respect to the audit arm of the IRS, from a tax reporting standpoint, a business with a complex tax question prior to a filing, can that business voluntarily request an IRS audit?
Huh, never had that question before. I don't think I've ever had anybody want to be audited. So I would say the answer to that is no. There is a way that you can get a special ruling on certain tax questions, but I would have to look that up for you. So if you'd like, my email address is shown on this last slide, and you are welcome to send me that question in an email, and I will look up that additional information and I'll get back with you. Hopefully that'll work for you.
All righty, so Lisa, we just got a couple minutes left. We don't have any other questions in there. Would you like to share just your last couple points as we wrap up? Any last minute suggestions for everybody?
Okay, well, so get those returns filed by July 15th. Again, the extensions, make sure that those are filed by July 15th if you need an extension till October 15th. You know, with these credits, be sure to talk to your tax advisor or your accountant or somebody as to how you should treat these, and make sure that they're aware of the information as well. Again, I just want to reiterate to please help us share that message to get the information out to those folks who may not know that they qualify for that payment. We really want to help those people out.
Excellent, thank you. We do have one last question that just popped in. It says, what do you recommend if we did not hang on to the letter regarding the economic impact payment received?
So, you know, it's not going to be something that you're going to need to attach to your return or anything like that. It's mainly so that you can make sure that you have a record of the amount that you received. And I know, you know, when it gets to be 6, 8, 10 months down the road, you'll go, oh, wait, was that, how much did I receive? Especially if it was under that maximum amount. So I would say that if you don't have that letter right now, go ahead and just make a record of the amount of the payment that you did receive. Because we don't have guidance yet, but there's probably going to be a way that you can determine whether you should be qualified for a larger amount. So for instance, maybe you received the $1,200 for an individual, but you didn't get that $500 for that child. So there's probably going to be a way for you to balance that all out when you file your return. So just make sure that you have an accurate record of the amount that you received at this time.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Lisa. We appreciate you being on today with us for this session and sharing the tax information. I know a lot of people, as we're getting closer to that July 15th deadline, probably had a lot of questions, and as they're working through their business right now with the different loan options and tax credits through the CARES Act. So we are grateful that you came on and shared that information and took that time. So thank you very much. Just a reminder.
The opportunity.
Yeah. Just a reminder that no boot camp session tomorrow on Friday, as it's for the observed Independence holiday. Everybody have a great weekend, and we look forward to seeing you next week for the continuation of the boot camp and the sessions we have planned. Again, have a great weekend and enjoy the holiday. Thanks, and have a great day.
Bye-bye.